Yep.
Hi everybody, welcome and thank you for joining us on this webinar. I'm delighted to say I'm here with Sarah Bradley today, and I'll get Sarah to introduce herself in 1 minute. So what we're going to look at today is all about how to care for your health and well-being of your employees, but also kind of balancing that against your business needs and requirements. It's obviously a very delicate balance that a lot of people have to be aware of, and Sarah's going to kind of talk to us about that today. So you're the expert on this, Sarah, so I'm not going to say much more. So I'm going to hand it over to you, if that's okay, Sarah, and you can tell everybody about obviously introduce yourself first, but then talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Thanks, Michael. Good morning. Thank you for asking me to join you today and talk about this subject. So I have prepared some slides. It's more so that you don't have to just stare at our screen faces for the entire session, and just to flash up some bullet points so that I can talk around them a little bit. So first of all, I'm Sarah Bradley. My business is the HR department. I work with small, medium-sized businesses, helping them with everything to do with managing people and employing people, right from the very beginning of recruitment and contracts of employment through to everything that happens in between, until we exit an employee for one reason or another, right up to retirement. So everything to do with HR, basically. So I'll screen share now and bring up the slides, if that's okay, and then we can start to talk about the topic matter today. Let's get the slideshow running. You can tell me if it's working okay. We've got that okay, yeah. Yeah. So why Michael introduced it as caring for employer health and well-being, but I'm a really big supporter of understanding that we're doing the right things, the best way of managing our business. If we manage our business in a way that really cares for the health and well-being of our employees, it's not rocket science. Science is going to deliver results for your business. However, you still have a business to operate. So we've got two halves of our story today. We've got the half of putting everything in place to make sure that you try and get things right in the first place. But sometimes it doesn't work, and we need to still think about those business priorities and how we're going to manage going forward. So why manage health and well-being? I'm a little sick teddy bear there in bed with his temperature being taken, but well-being of individuals, if we get this right, it will result in happy employees. There's been plenty of research over the years in HR and professional studies around how happy employees equal productive employees. Healthy and engaged employees, it's, as I said earlier, it's not rocket science, it means business success. So if we have healthy and engaged employees, our business will be more successful. It's a high cost to business if you have a lot of absence in your business as well, so we want to avoid this. And having lots of absence in the workplace, having unhappy or unhealthy employees is going to result in a disruption to our work, and that affects the individual, the team and the entire business. And then let's not forget the law. There are legal obligations under health and safety to take duty of care of our workers and employees. And there's the Equality Act, where that act contains all of our discrimination legislation. So protecting against people with particular vulnerable illnesses or disabilities. Here's for some statistics. So the CIPD Absence Management Survey, and the CIPD is a professional body for HR. They say that on average, an employee is absent for 6.9 days per year. And it's still minor illnesses, cold, flu, stomach upsets, headaches and migraines that are main reason for absence. And the cost of absence is £554 per employee. But if we look at the second biggest reason, and that's mental health, and 1 in 4 adults will suffer from mental health condition in any year. And unsurprisingly, lots of people are saying it's going to rise this year in 2020 and 2021. Last year, poor employee mental health cost the UK employers £42 billion, and 70 million work days were lost as a result of mental health problems. So there's the statistics, very powerful as to why we need to help people. But let's not forget all that, established HR professional research, which says happy employees are productive employees, engaged employees means success for your business. So how do you go about caring for health and well-being with some structure in place? I'm actually starting with a technology slide. So health and wellbeing isn't all about personal wellbeing and mental health and physical health if we don't set things up right for our employees in the first place. So technology means having a computer, having access to the systems. I know Michael came from a large corporate banking background, as did I previously, and he'll have experienced the same as me with new starters starting and not even a computer or a desk to assign them to, and you're trying to kind of welcome them to your business, but you've not even got the basics of the technology set up. So
that's really, I think it's a really interesting point, Sarah, actually, because I can attest, and I know someone else who was on this call will probably back me up on this, that 6-8 weeks without having access to any systems, you might have a computer, but you can't get on anything, is not unusual in that environment, which is not a great start, is it?
Yeah, so it starts from the very beginning of that induction process. So the whole employee life cycle, from starting employment, having everything in place, the technology, the work set up, the risk assessments. And then as we've got people established and set up, and we encouraging breaks, and especially at this time of more working at home, and as working at home and flexible working becomes more and more agile working and different environments, have we got the right setup for people? Is that going to help their long-term health or hinder it? And share some tips for success. I've got a handout that I can share with people if they get in touch, which is the 11 tips to healthy remote working. And in there, we've got things such as hydration, activity. I can't tell you how many times I sit at my desk and realise I haven't moved for a long time and my back's starting to hurt. So having some kind of monitor on place to make sure you take regular walk around just to keep yourself active. Switching off from the news as well is a really popular tip and a really valuable tip to keep people going. Excuse me. And we've got the employee assistance program. Excuse me.
I think it's very, so Gemma just actually raised the point, actually, Sarah, that so she, as you will know, that she had a new startup person join them quite recently, and they actually commented on the fact that they had everything ready when they started, so everything was there, and Gemma's put there, she was surprised she actually noticed that because it just seemed like the obvious and sensible thing to do.
Yeah, no, it's still as common as you experienced in your corporate world, where it's not always thought of as well as it needs to be. So we move on from new employees to thinking about all of our employees on an ongoing support basis. So I've put on here the employee assistance program, and I recently posted on this on a social media group that I'm in, and a lot of people weren't aware of what employee assistance programs were. And they're actually an external body that sits outside your organisation. It's full of professional counsellors and support workers, and your employees have access to dial in to a helpline, and that can be for any matter that's concerning your employee. So they might phone in if they've had a recent bereavement, they might phone in if they've got some financial troubles, they might phone in just for generally somebody that they can talk to that's independent and outside of their organisation. These employee assistance setups are really affordable, and a lot of employers don't realise that. I kind of pitched my social media post around the fact that it costs less than a bottle of champagne per employee per year. So if you're thinking about gifting your employees a bottle of champagne at any time, perhaps it might be more considerate to gift them access to 24-hour, 7-day-a-week telephone counselling service that's there for the whole year. So for less than a bottle of champagne, employee assistance programs are really accessible, and a lot of small businesses don't realise that they can access them. So that's something to be really keen on. Cybersecurity training and things like that, making people just prepared, set up and aware of what they need to be doing.
So Sarah, Stuart's made a point about the employee assistance program. So he says he really rates them, and he's even more so when he's referred staff to them. They do make a massive difference. So very much backing up your point on that. Yeah,
my experience of them, of when employees have accessed them in the past, it really is a lifeline. It's just somewhere else to turn. So thanks for that, Stuart. Okay, so moving on from support structures to effective communication. Again, regularly communicate with employees. I've seen over lockdown a lot of business owners trying to communicate regularly via email, and it isn't working because email communication can be so easily misinterpreted. So we need to be really varying our effective communication methods. So when we've got this, we're currently in a period of lockdown in the UK. I'll date my recording here, but we're going to carry on with this agile working. We're going to carry on with more flexible working. And with that in mind, we need to be thinking about our communication methods, and we need to be ranging our communication methods. And as I've said here, I've seen a few cases where emails just turned into a bit of an argument back and two, and each person's not being very clear at all about what's been said. So avoid overusing one method of communication. And virtual team offsites, socializing virtually as well. As we become, I'm saying as we become, so I've actually worked at home for 16 years now, and I had quite a large team structure in a previous role, and I had 16 people in my team, and there was actually only Tuesday morning that all 16 people were employed to work together, because of varying contract patterns and different things. So I had to think about communication because it had to be quite structured and meaningful to everybody. It wasn't a case of just dragging everybody together and saying, let's have a quick chat. So yeah, effective communication, plan it, think about it, structure it, and vary it. Michael, I don't know if you want to interject again before I pass on to the next slide.
No, that's everything. I think that one of the obviously difficulties at the moment with technology is people working from home, and obviously the communication levels. And I think you're right about emails. I mean, one of the problem with emails is tone can often get missed, and that can cause issues. Whereas at least with video technology, you kind of have that, well, as close as you can face-to-face communication anyway.
Absolutely. Okay, and then on to effective training and development. So I'm talking about well-being, and I'm talking about caring for our employees, but I'm actually probably just delivering a really structured HR kind of induction for you here. Because if we get the foundations right, we've got the setup to really care for our employees' health and well-being. But this is some more of the targeted training. So there are lots and lots of available training courses out there that can be sat remotely or in classrooms still. And these are some of the ones that I think are really useful when we're talking about caring for health and well-being. So you can get training programs and e-learning programs on building resilience, managing anxiety, stress awareness, time management's quite a key one. And we've got conflict resolution, mental health awareness, and then we can go the next step and we can give extra training for our line managers on mental health awareness and in all of these areas as well. So to show that we really care about the employees and we're thinking about setting them up right for success, these are some really useful training courses that you could offer people.
So Sarah, just slightly going back a little bit. So Gemma's asked a question actually about the employee assistance programs, and just asked if there's any particular ones that you would recommend that you know of.
I do, yeah. Obviously, with the HR department service that I offer, I work with a provider of an EAP program. So if anybody wanted to speak to me about that afterwards or send me a message, I will be able to talk about that in a bit more detail.
Perfect, thank you.
So we get to then balancing business priorities. So we've set everything up with a real foundation in place. So we've given our employees a good induction. We've given them IT equipment that works on day one. We've set them up with a proper workspace. We've communicated. We've planned in some health and wellbeing training and awareness. But things don't always go as planned. So we need to also have very clear policies in place about our tolerance levels and expectations when it comes to absenteeism and attendance. So we need clear policies and reporting procedures in place. So we need to make it very understandable for people. You know, if I need to phone in sick or if something's not quite right, who do I ring? How do I get hold of somebody? How are you going to record and monitor the absence? So over the years, I've come across a few kind of business owners will contact me and say they've had loads of time off. Okay, which days and what dates did they have off? Well, I don't know, but they've had loads of time off. So if you don't record from the very beginning, it can become a problem, but we can't start to manage it because we don't have the records that the employee was actually away from the business. When somebody's off work, always sit down, hold a turn to work interview with them. This isn't about quizzing them or analysing them or checking, were they really sick? Was it genuine? This is about the care side. So if we sit down and just say, how are you? What do you need for your return to work? We can understand what maybe triggered that employee's absence a little bit earlier than we may otherwise be able to do so. So always sit down and record a return to work interview. Absence reporting, so you might want to think about manual paper records or Excel spreadsheets. And again, there's lots of online systems out there for recording and tracking absence reporting. And don't forget to train and develop managers in absence handling. So make them aware of what the policy is, help them understand all of the processes around return to work interviews and absence reporting. So we need to think about some of the signs that we've got when we're starting to tip that balance between caring for the health and well-being of somebody, but that it's impacting on the business more than we can really cope with as a business, the size of the business that we are or the way that the business operates. So look for increased ad hoc sickness days, look for changes in behaviour and mood, look for a decrease in productivity. So if somebody's kind of going off the rails, they're leaning towards more absence and attendance, they'll also probably have drops in productivity and in their focus as well. Has somebody got an ability to make decisions? Have they reduced their ability to problem solve? And they're showing signs of tiredness or being withdrawn. So we've already seen there that the average CIPD statistic for absence was 6.9 days per year. So that's kind of a sense check point. And that's an average. So if you've got people that are having more than 6.9 days per year off, they're in excess of the average population in the UK. And maybe there's something that's triggering this that we need to get to the bottom of and understand so that we can nip it in the bud. We can try and sort this out, work together and reduce that level of absenteeism. Are their shift patterns right? Do they need their hours changing? Is this a temporary situation that if we can accommodate something for a short term, they'll appreciate it and we're back to normal again? So there's some of the signs to look out for. Michael, anything before I move on again?
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you about, obviously going back to this, about the number of days people have off and various other things. I don't know if you know this, but is there a difference between maybe types of industries? So say office type jobs that more people are off or less people are off, or certain types of, maybe mental health problems, rather than somebody who works, I don't know, in a retail outlet. They may be more likely to get illness because they're around people, but less likely to have mental health. I don't know if there's any kind of correlation there.
I'm not. I think if you looked at the statistics, and obviously I started my HR in a retail environment, so I've worked in a kind of manual shop floor type environment, and I've also got manufacturing clients as well. And those types of clients in kind of the hands-on jobs and roles definitely record higher absence rates than a similar or comparable office environment. But I often would suggest that that's because the office worker is able to say, I don't feel so good today, I'm going to take a working at home day. And it's just that the absence doesn't get recorded the same as when, if you've got an operative or a manual worker, a checkout operator, a machine operator, they physically can't be in work and it gets recorded as a day of absence.
Yeah, I think, but thinking about that, I know there's been days over my life when I've gone into work and sat there and, you feel terrible and you do nothing, but you do it because you don't want to have a day sick. But if you were doing something that was maybe physically more demanding, you just wouldn't have been able to do it or be around, should we say, the general public as well.
Yeah. So I think there's a masking of some of the absence data, but the clients and the industries that tend to have more recorded absence are those that require you to be well to attend work, which may not make sense, but you know what I mean. Okay. So balancing business priorities, we need to think about notification procedures, sickness and payment rules, make sure people are clear about what's expected in terms of sickness rules. And then we're just going to have a look now at the implications of short-term absence and versus long-term absence. So short-term absence is where we've got patterns of absence. So maybe a few elongated weekends, or somebody's always off before or after a holiday. To manage this, we should be thinking about maybe some triggers in our policies. So if somebody's got 3 or more occasions, for example, maybe more than 5 working days, especially knowing that average figure. Agree some targets for improvement, and think about at what point we become concerned and feel we need to have a more formal conversation with somebody. Again, keep records and confirm in writing. And then the consequences of having lots of days off. After all these years, so I've been in HR for 23 years now, and I still find that people don't understand that there are consequences of having too many days off, and it can result in disciplinary action. So I've had lots of friends ring me and say, my boss is speaking to me because I've had too many days off work, or he thinks I've had too many days off work, but I was sick. And that's the point. So it's about being at work that's important. And business owners do have the right to speak to employees that are having lots of sick days. So this isn't about whether you were genuinely ill or whether you were suffering from a real illness or virus or anything like that. This is just simply the basic fundamentals of being employed and having a requirement to attend work. And if you don't attend work, then the boss is going to speak to you.
Do you think, Sarah, that there's a bit of a myth maybe on both parts, actually, both business owners and workers, that you can't, no one can really do anything if you're off sick a lot? You can't be touched, as it were. And obviously business owners, I'm sure that you speak to, are kind of worried about the consequences of that. Do you think that's one of those myths that a lot of people believe in?
Absolutely. So especially on the employee front, but even on the employer front, there's that much been publicised around equal opportunities, equality, mental health, that employers can often be frightened of talking to their employees about topics like this. And actually it's just, we've got to work in the right way as business owners and as managers. We need to work with trying to help our staff attend work, be in work. And as I opened up the slides at the beginning, be engaged and be happy, because we're going to have a better business. However, if our employees are not behaving and acting in that way, we have an absolute obligation for the other employees and for the team and for the overall business to speak to those individuals and to really manage that forward. So when I say manage that forward, our objective has got to be to get them back attending work on a regular basis. And that might sometimes include some adjustments, some changes to hours, a change of team, a change of job role. But at the end of the day, if we've exhausted all of those options, the employee is simply failing to fulfill their contract of employment. They're not attending work, and we need to deal with it, as harsh as that may sound. But that's the balancing business priorities side of the presentation. I think I've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but the long-term absence, I've always considered long-term absence more than 4 weeks. Regular contact. So if somebody is off more than 4 weeks, make regular contact, meet them or call them on a regular basis. What we're again trying to do is, our objective is trying to work in a way that will help these individuals back to work. And sometimes we can negotiate and work out the ways that that's best to happen. And other times we need to get consent to get some occupational health advice. And that occupational health advice will help guide us about the best way to bring an employee back to work. So our objective, get the person back to work, working in a way that's good for them and good for the business. However, if that's not possible and the absence extends, beyond that first 4 weeks, then it is okay to start to think about whether or not we can keep that job open. There's kind of people ask me, what's the magic timeline? Where would you normally cut this off? At what point do you think about, moving on to the consequences, which is the dismissal? It's not that black and white. So we need to think about the individual's situation. If they're undergoing or waiting for an operation and it's going to be recovery in 6 weeks, then we'd wait longer. If they were told there's no kind of clear sign of when the individual will get better, then that might be time to start to think about some of the actions that are open to the business, which do include dismissal. So there are 5 reasons that you can dismiss somebody from a business, and one of them is capability. Okay, any questions, Michael?
No, I think that's all for now, Sarah. Thank you, and that makes sense.
Just we'll wrap up on the last couple of slides. So for both short-term and long-term absence, and I've covered a little bit of this already, when do we dismiss? And that's after we've just tried. So this is the end game, should always start out being getting the person back to work with some adjustments. Have a look at changes in the job role, consider some changes to roles of hours and flexible. And all of these apply when we're managing frequent short-term absence or long-term absence as well. So have you tried all of these options? Some of these are very relevant around employment legislation. The Equality Act means that we are required to sometimes look at reasonable adjustments to people's roles in order to help them work within our workplace. But once we've exhausted all of those, the outcome might be dismissal, and we just need to be able to ask, was the decision fair? And the test of fairness is if you've got lots of business owners together, would they have probably done the same thing? So we start off at the beginning of this presentation, I'm talking about health and well-being. And if we get all of that right, then we hope we don't end up with the end of my presentation ever becoming a reality. But as you said earlier, Michael, not all business owners are actually aware or informed that these are actions that they can take to help balance those business priorities. Any questions still out there from anybody else?
I have a question before anyone else does, if that's okay, Sarah. Do you think that obviously what's happened in the last 6, 7, 8 months or so will maybe that number of sick days will actually come down in the long term? And my thought process behind that is that you've got employers who will be a little bit more aware of issues for their staff. You know, if they are remote, they might essentially put more effort into making sure that their staff are happy. And on the flip side of that, employees will probably understand that businesses have had it tough. They'll probably be more invested, and also kind of understand that if their business doesn't succeed, they probably could lose their job quite easily, and there's more of a fragility, I guess, to the job. And I know it's maybe a bit of a utopian world, and it won't be the case for everyone, but do you think that maybe the long-term effects might be that there is actually a reduction if everyone kind of plays their part?
I like your optimism. I think that we'll see more agile and flexible working, and I think that, as I've already expressed, generally reduces recorded absenteeism because it enables people to work a little bit differently. So somebody that's granted flexible and agile working, if they're not feeling so well on a Tuesday, Wednesday, they've got all the equipment at home. A lot of honest folk who've got good integrity, they'll log on the weekend just to make sure everything's okay before they come back in on Monday. It's always going to be difficult to reduce absence in environments where you're required to be at a station. So if you've got to be at the depot, at the checkout, at the production line, it's like we said earlier, if you run well, you run well. Maybe getting some of the training in place and the resilience training, being just more aware of mental health and talking and putting more processes in place around EAPs and things like that. All of those should reduce absence for any business that applies them.
No, I definitely think, I mean, it won't be a short-term shift, but I think, like I said, maybe I'm sure there's probably a lot of people watching this will have been in jobs where they could have worked from home, but have been told at some point in their life they can't work from home, their business wouldn't do it. And that will have resulted in sickness and absence for whatever reason. And I think now it's kind of been proved that a lot of, should we say, office-based roles can be done from home, at least some of the days. I think that could be a big shift eventually. And like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. But once we get through all this, maybe that is one of the big changes we're going to see in that area. And obviously that's good for businesses and employees.
Yeah. Shall we stop screen sharing so we'll go back to there you go.
Yep.
Are there any other questions in the chat room?
So let's have a look. So Pete says, great presentation, Sarah, full of useful information and relevant information, sorry. So that's good. Doesn't appear any more questions, so you must have covered it all, Sarah. I'd be interested. Oh, I've got another one. Oh yeah, another great presentation from Kate saying that. So thank you very much. And And Gemma said she's biased because Sarah does her HR. You're excellent, apparently, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just lastly, Sarah, so if anyone wants to get hold of you, obviously I'm sure you're more than happy to have a conversation if someone wants to find out a bit more about, just to kind of ask any general questions on HR. And I know I've already done that recently. And I'm sure other people can do that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thank you. And I said, I've got a few PDFs and things that if people wanted access to them, there's one on 11 healthy tips for remote working, for example. And I've got a couple of other handouts like that if people wanted to have them access to them.
No, I think that's very relevant right now, isn't it? And it will be in the future as well, actually. So that's great. So if there's no more questions, I think that's everything, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for your time. And thank you everyone who's watched. And like I've said, if there is people there will be a number of people who will watch this afterwards. I know on the various channels. If you do have questions, please feel free, to send them, and I can pass them on to Sarah, and I'm sure she'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
So thank you everyone for your time.